All right, here we go. It's official. Welcome every week. Welcome to the Help a Teacher Facebook Live every week, Monday night at 7 p.m. Central. And hey, listen, before we get this party started, I want to give a shout out to this crew I spoke to in Illinois at the iSiri 2020 conference. It was, man, it was amazing. Let me tell you why it was awesome. Is we had a room filled of hundreds and hundreds of educators, but not just your typical classroom teachers. What these educators specialize in is working with some of our most at-risk kids, and they work at alternative schools, and kids are homebound. And here's what I love about it. Well, there's two things I loved about it. Is one is anytime we have that many educators in one room that are so clearly committed and passionate to the work, like amazing magical moments always happen. And two, what's interesting about that group is like, if you sort of like teaching, you're not going to last. Like, that work is so difficult and they're so committed. They love it so much. Like, it has to be in your core, in your heart, in your soul to do that work. It truly is a calling. And I had an amazing time in beautiful Normal, Illinois. Home of the Illinois State University. All right, let's get into it this week. Hey, hold on. Before we get going with this week's guest, let me talk about next week. Next week, we've got my friend coming on here. Dr. Sean Woodley is going to join us. And listen, he's been on my podcast before, and this guy is filled with information, not just about teaching school, but staff, motivating staff, and finding your purpose and your why. And I know you're going to love it. So that's next week. And so this week we got Trevor Romain. And Trevor Romain is a best-selling, award-winning children's book author and illustrator, as well as a sought-after speaker. Trevor has written over 50 books. What? He sold more than 1 million copies worldwide, and he's been published in 22 languages for 30 years, over 30 years. Oh my God, he's old. He's traveled schools and hospitals, orphanages, refugee camps, military bases worldwide, delivering his unique self-help message to hundreds of thousands of kids. He's performed on multiple USO tours. He's worked with the United Nations, developing educational materials for children living in armed conflict areas. He continues to work with kids around the world, including military children, orphans in South Africa. This guy has got a lot going on. All right, let me welcome him to the show. Here we go. Let's get this thing started. Help a Teacher Facebook Live with Trevor Romain. And brother, you are coming to us from Austin, Texas. Is that right?
Correct. I'll tell you what, I sound like an interesting guy. I cannot wait to hear what I've got to say.
I was looking at, man, I'm reading through all of your stuff in orphanages and Rwanda, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what have I done? I haven't done anything with my life. I got to get something going, man.
All you got to do is volunteer.
Is that what it is?
Yep.
I need to get out of my house more. Hey, listen, before we get another word into this thing, so I'm in Houston, you're in Austin, and as I would hear some Texans say, that based on your accent, we can tell that you ain't from around these here parts.
No, I'm not from Austin. I'm South Africa. I was born in South Africa, and I actually haven't been able to acquire the Texas accent. And in fact, when I first came here, I didn't understand a lot of what people were saying. When people used to say things like y'all and all y'all, I didn't know what an all y'all was for the longest time. But I'm gaining on it. I will get there one day.
You know what it was for me is I moved here from New Jersey in the 8th grade, and it was put your books up, or you're put, go put your shoes up. And I'm like looking on it, put my shoes up on a shelf. What are we putting them? And it took me forever to figure out what people were talking about.
Yeah. There's a lot of little colloquial phrases that are very interesting, which that would be a whole show unto itself.
Hey, already Tara wants you to know, man, she's here from Arkansas and she has your books and DVDs in her counseling library.
Oh, well, I'm so glad to hear that. Thanks very much. I appreciate the support, and I hope it's helping you help the kids.
Hey, let me ask you this. When you were growing up in South Africa, did you have any idea that a professional counselor named Tara in Arkansas was going to have your materials in her office?
Not in my lifetime, because I have ADD. I also am dyslexic, and I was the kid who was sitting in the corner, got spanked for doodling, was told I was an idiot, and landed up writing 50 books. And I would never in my life have thought I could have actually stood up and spoke in front of anybody, let alone have Tara from Arkansas have my stuff in her office.
And so when you're growing up in school and you're doodling and drawing your characters, and were teachers telling you need to take this class serious, quit playing around, quit your doodling.
Oh, I was spanked for doodling. I was also scolded and told to pay attention. Interestingly enough, now in the children's media company that I have with a business partner, when I'm not doodling, he says to me, "You're not listening."
Right.
You're not doodling, you're not listening, and it really does help me. It's very interesting. But yeah, no, school was very, very, very difficult for me. I was very small. I'm still small, and so I was bullied a lot, and just shamed a lot, and it was hard.
Yeah, man. Here's anytime I come across somebody that has really given a lot of valuable content and information and inspiration to the educational community, whether it's teachers or kids or counselors. I'm always, I shouldn't be shocked anymore because it happens so often, but to find out the story behind that is always amazing. And typically it comes from some real challenging place.
Yeah, it does. And what's interesting to me is that a lot of people who become teachers and a lot of people who become counselors, they do it because they had experiences maybe when they were young that just didn't quite work for them, and they wanted to go and do it right. And that's exactly why I wrote the book, How to Do Homework Without Throwing Up, which Tara referenced. But I wrote that book because homework was really, very difficult for me. And I got into the kid business because I didn't want any kids to have to go through what I went through. And interestingly enough, I've met some of the most amazing teachers. But when people get tired and jaded and they don't want to do the job anymore, that's when they need most to be, to be great. And I was told that I wasn't talented enough to go to the art class, and I wasn't accepted at art school, but I illustrated all 50 of my books. So, young, impressionable minds believe what people say often. And so that's why I'm so excited on the travels that I do now, because I've met some incredible teachers. And the interesting thing is the people who are probably watching this aren't the people we should be speaking to, because they care about what they do. That's why they're here.
Yeah. I've always saying that, man. Like, at the end of my conferences and my keynotes and all that I do, like that's the final message is, listen, I know, like I get it. I'm really self-aware. I'm preaching to the choir. You're all amazing. That's why you're here, and you're here because you're amazing. It's this self-fulfilling prophecy. And the goal here is to take it back and give it to everyone else.
Yeah. And I can honestly say I would not be sitting here in front of you today if it wasn't for the most amazing teacher in second grade. My second grade teacher was incredible. This is what she did. On Friday afternoons, when just before class ended, about a half an hour, she turned off the main light, locked the door, sat in an overstuffed chair, and she started reading to us from a book called The Secret Seven, which was each week she read us a short chapter. I couldn't read, but I was fascinated by those books. When she'd leave the classroom, I'd pick up the book and I'd look at it and I'd say, how did that story come out of this thing? You're trying to shake the story out the book. I became obsessed and fascinated with books. And that's what got me. So I wanted to know the story. So that's motivated me to really try so much harder to read. And although now when I'm very tired, I struggle with reading, that Mrs. Barry, second grade, changed my life completely. And I will never forget her, and always remember what a gift she gave me.
What's really fascinating is, and a lot of people that watch this show know, I have this nasty little habit of sneaking up on random people in public and asking them right then, like having my phone out, recording a video. and just on the street or in the airport, wherever I am, and I say, tell me about your teacher. Tell me about a teacher that you remember from elementary, middle school, high school, someone that comes to mind. Who comes to mind first that made a difference? And it's 100%. Everybody has one.
Yeah.
Everybody can go. And what's really fascinating, it's not just that they can remember the teacher, it's the detail with which they can remember, like everything from that class, from that teacher, the feeling of the room, what they learned in the classroom. They could describe the pictures on the wall. It's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when I got to high school, I had a seventh grade teacher, Mr. Kleeman, who was really wonderful too. I got bored by writing essays. Oh my goodness me! Being an ADD guy, in 2 seconds I'm looking out the window and I couldn't
Yeah.
figure out the subject. And then I was trying to be smart one day, and because I was learning to play guitar and I wanted to be a rock star. And I said to him, "Oh, can I write a song instead of an essay? You know, big mouth in the back." And he goes, "Sure." And I wrote the lyrics for a song, and I got an A. And that was the first time in my life I ever got an A for anything. I'm a CD student, and my goodness me, chasing that A was the best carrot in the world.
Yeah.
What an amazing feeling! And that guy did me a great service, because I tasted that, and that success felt so good, and I was so proud. It made me want to do it more and work harder.
Man, kind of the metaphor for that for me is I'm one of those guys that you hear about on the news that I'm allergic to peanuts, like deathly. And so the question is, like, guess how much I crave peanut butter? None. Like I don't, because I've never tasted it. Like I
Right.
don't, like I've never had it, so I don't want it. And for me, that's what I think about a lot of our kids. For lots of our kids, they haven't. It's been so long since they've tasted success. They've felt what it feels like to be academically successful. They don't crave it. They don't want it. They don't think about it. They don't care anything about it. And for me, like all I want for certain kids is just for them to remember, for them to taste it and feel what it's like to be academically successful. Whether I have to contrive that a little bit in the classroom and set them up a little bit,
Sure.
that's okay, and kind of fib my way and fake my way, that's okay. I just want them to remember what it's like to be successful.
Yeah. And the interesting thing too is that if you look at a lot of inner city schools, unfortunately, kids who go into that believe that they are not smart. They believe that they are not going to be successful. And when you believe your own story, it's really, really difficult to get over that first hurdle of success. And that's why some of those programs in the schools are so important and so good.
Yeah.
To be able to, you coming in with a disadvantage, to be able to say, you know what, that's actually not true. You're not you're not an idiot. And that I think is we have to really do a lot more of.
Yeah, it's critical, and that's the thing. Like, I think we underestimate that belief system because it's more than their belief, it's their complete, total reality. And they believe those messages because they have so much evidence in that and like even for a kid that's sixth grade or a 6 year old or 16, it's the same thing. They have this mountain of evidence in their mind that proves they're not smart because they haven't done well on a test, or they say, well, look at this school we go to, or look at this community. And that becomes their entire reality, which is more than just a belief. And it's so hard to overcome that kid's reality.
Yeah, it is. But people like me, the old dunce in the corner, once they broke through and got through, it was life changing. And I used to hate going near schools. Now I love to go and visit a school.
Yeah.
Well, because they could. Well, I suppose they could put me in detention, but I sat on the bench outside the principal's office for a lot of time, and now I'm not even scared anymore to go into a school. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, so how did this whole thing start? At what point did you decide to just be immersed and obsessed with writing children's books?
I actually had a moment in my life which made everything happen for me. So I battled through school, as I said, and when I was a youngster, we all had to do military service in South Africa. So I had to do 2 years of military service, and at one point I was in a hospital visiting a friend, happened to be in the children's ward by accident, had taken a wrong turn, a whole bunch of kids, and I walked past this little boy who was maybe 5 years old, little African kid, and he was sitting on the edge of his bed. And as I walked by, he just put his hands up to me and he asked me to hold him. And I just wanted to get out of there. I was so uncomfortable. But I'm looking down at this little kid, and he puts his hands up and he says, please, can you pick me up? And something happened in the deepest part of my soul. I put my kit down and I picked up this little boy. And I can tell you, I've never been held so tightly in my life. This little guy put his face right here in my neck and he started to cry. And that little boy's tears ran down my cheek, onto my neck and into my shirt and touched my heart. And at 19 years old, I never forgot that. And it called me and kept on calling me. And so I went back to go visit the kid a little later and was acting like an idiot, made the kid laugh. And I realized I can make children laugh. So I decided to see if I could actually do that for more kids and started writing books.
And then what was the process from that very first book you wrote to getting it published and getting it out there and in front of people?
Oh, that was an interesting exercise. I wrote a book and I thought it was brilliant, and I could not get anything published. In fact, I had over 400 rejections before my first books were ever published. And these are a bunch of different books I'd send and get back. And one day I decided, I wrote a book and I decided I was going to donate it to a charity in Austin. And I went around to all the charities and I said, look, I've got this book, I've written it, it's illustrated. I will give it to you, we can print it and you can keep the proceeds. My ploy was, look, I'll get a book published at least this way, but I don't care. I don't really, the money wasn't the thing. I wanted to get a book out. So I went to all the nonprofits around and they looked at me like I was nuts. They said, oh, something's not quite right. There's something up with this. Except for one little organization called the Candlelighters Childhood Cancer Foundation. So the woman who was in charge, they said, oh, this is awesome. The book's called The Keeper of the Dreams. Our children are going through treatment. Their dreams are, they're holding their dreams to be able to have a life and continue. Yes, we'll take it. So they took the book and printed it, and it did well. We made a nice chunk of money. And then one day she comes to me, she said, look, I'm setting up a reading at the hospital for you to go and read the book to the kids. I was like, no. I've never met a kid with cancer. No.
Yeah.
I'm very uncomfortable. I'd rather can I just sign books and send them off? And she said, no, you're going to the hospital. So I thought, okay, what I'll do is I'll go to the hospital, read the book, get out of there as soon as possible. I go to the hospital. There's a playroom. There's about 16 kids aged, 14 till 3. They've got their IV poles. They're all bald from chemotherapy. And I walk in and I sit down and I'm really nervous. Hadn't spoken in front of a lot of people at that time. And I sat down. I thought, what I'm going to do best is just read the book. So I read the book, and there was a little girl rather. She put up her hand and she said, excuse me, can you read it again, please? I said, okay. So I read the book 7 times. And we started talking, and we had a great time. And as I was leaving, the little boy, I remember his name, Alex Dunn, he put up his hand. He said, excuse me, sir, are you coming back tomorrow? And I said, yep. And I've been going back for over 27 years, having been board president of the American Childhood Cancer Organization. And reading that book just got the ball rolling, and got that book out. And the speaking got more people interested in my future books.
Yeah. And then have you always done the illustrations? I mean, you consider yourself equally the illustrator as well as an author?
I'm not a brilliant illustrator. I can do cartoon style stuff, and most of my writing style is whimsical. I try and do sort of stand-up comedy for kids where I weave the information in between, these whimsical drawings. And some of my books, there's a series that's on Free Spirit Publishing, like How to Do Homework Without Throwing Up. They've reissued the books with a different illustrator. And he's a great illustrator. So some stuff suits my style, some of it doesn't. So, but I do the majority of it.
Yeah. Hey, curious. So you mentioned that you're in Austin, Texas now. How did you get from South Africa to Austin? Those are very different places, my friend.
Yes, very, very different. I actually came on holiday once when I was a young guy. I used to be in advertising before I gave it up full time to write. I was working in advertising and had some time off and came to the United States on a holiday. And I actually drove through Austin, and there was a place called 6th Street on Austin, which was very, very fun. It was like it was like Bourbon Street in New Orleans, and I was like, wow! And it was spring. It was cold. I landed in New York, came to Austin. It was cold, and I went back home and I said to my family, you know, I think I want to go. I think I kind of like that place. It was very creative and very exciting. There was a lot of stuff going on here.
Yeah.
I made the transition and came over here when it was easier to get here.
Hey, I'm curious, when you travel around, is there when you're visiting, let's say, elementary schools, what is one of the common themes that you see of what teachers and parents are most concerned about?
I think personally now there's a real trend to want to push kindness and spread kindness, because I think you know, and this we know that a happy child gets better grades, and I think there's a lot of, because of social media and because of examples we're seeing around the world of aggression, rudeness. I think there's a lot of that going on, and parents, when I meet them, they would like us to be kinder. They'd like children to be kinder to each other, and I personally believe that the only way we're going to solve problems with bullying, the only way we're going to solve problems with cliques and not fitting in is to create a peer-to-peer culture. The kids are going to have to take care of it. Kids are going to have to say, we're done. No more bullying. You're not going to do that to that person anymore. You know, because an adult can punish people for the rest of time, but unless we equip the kids to be able to handle them. And then we also have, children have to realize that when people bully someone, it's because something's going on. 90% of the time, kids bully other kids because something's going on with them. If a bully is reported, and I always tell kids this, then maybe you can help the bully. And they're like, whoa, why would I want to help a bully? Well, because if a teacher, counselor, principal can find out why that person's behaving that way, then possibly they can be helped and they may not behave, you know, that way. So I think, you know, trying to have a kinder, more connected group at schools is what I see. To answer your question in a long roundabout way.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think that is it's a huge topic right now, and for me, it's for a couple of reasons, and these are my theories, man. I got a lot of theories. I don't know if they're accurate or not, but what one of my theories is that a lot of it, even at the elementary age level, is unsupervised social media. And where before, years ago, back when you and I were growing up, if there was something that was somewhat offensive on the TV, I don't know how that could have happened back in 1978. But if there was, your parents would turn off the TV and that would be the end of that. But now, a kid in his room with a phone or an iPad or just around the corner from the parent, I mean, everything that's available in the world is on that phone, available to the kid. And in addition to that, my second theory is, as we raise the academic expectations in the younger grades. I mean, like, and I tell people, if you haven't been to a kindergarten lately, you should probably go and see what are expected, like academically expected of those children. Because of those expectations, oftentimes we just don't have the time and the resources to do those things that we did years ago, which was all about kindness and respect and loving our classroom family. All those things have we're just only so much time in the day.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think your theories are correct. And, look, it's inevitable. Social media is part of the future. But what we have to do is figure out a way that families can set aside time for social media. And then there's got to be time that's like where that is cut off, because what's happening is that kids are getting sucked into it. And when somebody believes everything they read, it's really, really difficult to extricate them from that. And that's about connecting with kids. I wrote a book recently called How to Connecting with Kids in a Disconnected World, because although we are connected now, we're disconnecting. And one of the things that I always tell parents is the best gift you can ever give your child is time.
Yeah.
Because being able to make them want to value that time with a parent and have controlled time, but it's very difficult, because if Johnny is online all the time and Mary is being told she can't get online at all, then there's that rebellion that you want to, then you do it undercover. So it's a fine balance.
You know, that the reconnection process. Let me tell you, I saw something. One of the most beautiful things. I was on the. I might have told this before. I don't know if I'm telling again. Is I was on the road speaking. I can't remember where I was, but after I was done, I had a few hours before I had to get to the airport, and I stop off at the Chili's for my Caribbean salad with chicken breast on top. Anyway, I get there, and then in the Chili's they always have that corner booth. It's like a circle. You got to. And I'm right next to it. And in comes, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9, 16, 17-year-old kids, boys. And I thought, oh my gosh, I just need some peace and quiet. And they're about to sit right next to me. And I'm thinking, okay, here we go. Let me just try to focus. Maybe I'll put my headphones on. And they're sliding into the booth. I'm trying to, just relax, but I'm also paying attention to them. And I hear one of the kids goes, okay, everybody, friend time. And he reaches into his pocket and he pulls out a Crown Royal bag. Nothing's in the bag. And at first that's disconcerting that he's got a Crown Royal bag. But then he goes, all right, put him in. And every one of those boys took out their cell phone and put it in the Crown Royal bag. He tied it up and put it in the bread basket right there on the table. And those kids talked. And I thought, oh my gosh, like I can't even, how many, I can't even, I'll see entire families with toddlers staring at the screen at Chili's, and here is a group of 16 and 17-year-old boys that have it figured out.
That's great. Obviously, somebody role modeled that for them, which is great. I was at the beach. I was in Hawaii last summer. There were 3 kids sitting under an umbrella with their phones. Their parents were boogie boarding, and they were calling the kids to come and boogie board. These kids were sitting with their clothes on, pretty much, and they were on their phones. They wouldn't go into the ocean, and they were on vacation in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And they were 12, 13, 14-year-old, and they didn't want anything to do with it. But parents often come to me and say, I can't get my kid to read. My kid just won't read. And I say to them, do you read? And they say, no, I haven't got time. And it's unfortunately what's happening in the world today is that parents are dumping kids at school without giving them any decent moral compass and a grounding, and they're expecting teachers not only to teach kids, but to discipline them and to give them some structure and to teach them right from wrong, which takes away, as you said, from teaching time. And I think parents are a big part of the way kids come to school, obviously.
It's that's a huge part of it. I mean, thinking back when this whole school thing started in that first little schoolhouse, if you look back at the mission of that little schoolhouse, it was designed and it's written out to supplement the education that's already happening in the home. And and we are a far cry from that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the thing is, I see it. And this is I've experienced at schools as well, which is kind of interesting. I was giving a talk at a school, and a lot of the wasn't the teachers, but with the parents and people sitting around in the auditorium while I'm giving my talk to 600 elementary school kids, they were on their phones. And the kids are looking over to their mom or dad or a teacher's aide or somebody who's sitting there, and they're on their phones and computers. And I'm thinking, we're in an assembly. You're role modeling right here what not to do, because you're telling them, don't pay attention, but you're not.
Right.
And, that was
I know.
Parents. Yeah.
Hey, what's I was going to talk to you about, and because I was thinking about your childhood and being an artist and doodling and illustrations, and one of the things I find fascinating is when you go into, let's say, a first grade classroom, and I could yell out in first grade, hey, who in here is an amazing artist? And you know what? Every kid raises their hand. I am. But if you do that same thing in a 7th grade or 8th grade, hey, who in here is an amazing? They all point to one kid. That one over there. That kid can draw. And what's interesting is just how they lose that over such a short amount of time.
Yeah, and who told them that they couldn't draw? Because that's what happened. Somebody criticized, somebody judged, and you're putting it out there for people to see. Yeah, that happens a lot. Yeah. And thankfully, as kids get older, get into their late teens, apparently, if they do have a creative streak, it kind of comes back in, and people do journaling and photography and what have you. So But it's interesting how they believe. I mean, I believed I was an idiot for a long time, and I really didn't think that I was smart until I was, in my 20s, and then I realized I'm actually not an idiot. I'm not brilliant, but I'm not an idiot. But
Right.
I believed I was dumb.
Yeah. You know what I worry about? I love, I do, I don't love it, but I appreciate our push for kids into more STEM fields and science, technology, math, all that. But what concerns me are those kids that feel like they're being pushed in that direction, whether it's a parent or a counselor or a teacher, and they're really just not into it. They're more a creative kid or more compassionate, more nurturing type of, or even just a more social kid that where sales might be that person's future. But because they're in this field that they're not passionate about, they don't even like it, they often feel as a failure, not bright in that area.
Yeah, that's a huge problem, because so often the parents decide what the kid's going to do,
Mm.
and if you're not, in that groove, then you're a failure, you're a loser, and if it's really difficult, because I've seen so many real creative kids struggling, at university, where they are not university material, but they could go off and be an amazing filmmaker, or an artist, or even there are many writers who can't sit through a class at school. So the outlets, and I'm having worked a lot with terminally ill kids. I found the best way that they are managing their feelings is through expressing, through putting it down on paper, whether it's writing or whether it's art. And that for me is a way we have to be able to give them an outlet, even if they are in that, because a lot of art classes are being taken away, right?
Yeah.
And music and stuff. So I think it's a balance. I think we have to have a balance of everything, a balance of cell phones, a balance of art. So we have to have a little bit of everything to have the legs balance on.
Yeah, I was at a school recently, and and I love this. They were celebrating their teacher of the year and their paraprofessional of the year, and they had them on. They have a little golf cart. This kind of, I don't know if it's like an electric type cart that rolls around the school, and they got the main hallway of the school, and they lined up the junior high kids on both sides to celebrate as the teacher and the paraprofessional coming down on the back of the golf cart in the way. It's like a parade just for them. And what was amazing is there's the principal on her bullhorn, and she yells out on the bullhorn, "Okay, cell phone time, use it responsibly, ready, go." And every kid pulls out their cell phone, and they're taking pictures and video, and they wave into them. And then at the very end, the principal says, "All right, put them away, we're done." And every kid, and what I learned when I went back and talked to her is like they practice that digital citizenship where there's a time and place and the way you use cell phones, and we'll let you know. And we're going to learn together as a school family when it's appropriate, when it's not. And they practice it and they rehearse it, and phones aren't ever a problem.
Yeah, digital solution. I love that. That's brilliant. That's a great model to follow. And it's the same with anything that's taboo. The more you stop somebody from doing something, kids, the more they want to do it because they want to rebel against it. And if they're given, that's why I say to parents, you can't ban a phone completely. Give them supervised time where they can have their online time. And I always say to parents, if parents will come to me and say, "Oh, my kid just doesn't want to do his homework." So I suggest, why don't you do your homework at the same time? Do your taxes, do your bills, do your grocery list. Sit down and do it, because you're role modeling. Again, you are practicing what you preach, so they can learn from you. And just writing down. One of the things that worries me a lot is that research is showing that just by writing, just by doodling, that your brain works in a different way from just keyboarding. And I had an amazing experience of how just a simple sentence connected a whole family. And this was away from the whole digital world. So I'm very big on journaling, because I've been working a lot with our US military kids. And when their parents are deployed, I have them write down what they're feeling in their journals, putting down on paper, whether it's a feeling or a drawing. And there was a young girl who I'd given a journal to write her feelings down when her dad was gone to Afghanistan. And she wrote down what she was feeling. When he came back, she showed her dad her journal. So she wrote me an email: "Dear Mr. Trevor, I wrote in my journal what I was feeling when my daddy was gone. And when he came back, I gave him my journal to look at. And when my daddy started reading in my journal, he started to cry. And when my daddy started to cry, that's when I knew my daddy got his feelings back. And when my daddy got his feelings back, that's when I knew I got my daddy back. Because her dad had come back and he couldn't reconnect with his kid.
Yeah.
By her simply writing down what she was feeling on paper, connected that family. And, what a great way to be able to say to families, okay, let's all sit down and write what we feel. Okay, phones off right now. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Really
I
helps.
love that. And even for kids, I mean, it works for, I was, for years, I ran a mentoring program in a high school where we go visit elementary kids, and my high school seniors are paired up with an elementary kid they see once a week at these certain schools. And we had one of my mentors, it was a senior in high school. She said, man, I can't get this kid to talk to me. This kid will just not engage. A kid won't participate in our games. It won't do anything. Just sits there. And, I've asked question after question and just try to engage and nothing. And I said, well, will he write? And she goes, well, I don't know. I said, well, let's try that. So we went to the store, we got a journal, and I said, you write the first page and then you give him the journal. And then he takes it that week. And she came back the next week. This kid had written like 3 pages worth of stuff that she could read when she got there the next week. And then she wrote back to him, and then every week they would pass this journal back and forth. And within, I don't even know, it was just maybe a month, it was just full on verbal conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and what's happening is that there's a learning how to connect that happens. And that is critical. One of the things that I feel really strongly about is that what's happening with our children today is we're telling them, get off your phones. We gave them the technology, for goodness sake, but we're telling them, get off your phones. We're telling them your generation is useless. All you want to do is surf the web. We're not giving them tools to be able to ask for support when they need it. And we're not teaching them how to get what they need from us. Because what are we saying to kids? When a kid comes to us with a problem, we say, it's going to be okay. It's not. Do you think that's going to make them okay when we say it's going to be okay? No, it doesn't. It makes them feel isolated. And then I believe when they go onto the social media, they get even more isolated because this is not a real relationship, and this is just 2-dimensional. So that sitting down with a kid, writing in a journal, maybe drawing together, that forms connections.
Yeah,
and I see classrooms too as well. It works so well.
It's really doubly intensive for a kid, because when they get in that zone and they feel isolated, now they go online, they're definitely more isolated. But in addition to that, it's also releasing all those endorphins and chemicals and addictive hormones in their mind, because of just scrolling and liking and scrolling and seeing and just so much, and they don't realize they're becoming more isolated. I mean, it's
no, there's a reward. There's a reward when you do that. You feel
yes.
It's absolutely. I read something the other day which was fascinating, and you may have seen this, and people out there may have seen this. There's a school that instead of people going to detention when they're in trouble, there's a meditation center at the school.
Yeah.
And they have to go and sit in that place. And I think it's only for 10 or 15 minutes. And it's changed the whole culture of that school, because what's happening is those kids are actually learning to down-regulate what they're feeling. It's very, very powerful. Yeah,
it really is. Hey, when you're at schools, I'm just wondering, what's the goal for you? What's the if when I know you're going to stand before hundreds and sometimes thousands of children, and there's teachers there, and you're walking away, how do you measure if it's been a good day? What are you hoping to accomplish?
Great question. What I try to do right from the outset is to help kids be able to connect with each other. I triple dog dare them to be kind, because it's very easy to be mean. And what I say to kids is, I challenge them when they leave the room. I say, you have 2 options when you leave this room. The first option is you can be the same person walking out that came in, easy. Or you can be a person who walks out that door and says, I'm not going to say something to someone. I'm not going to tease someone. I'm not going to belittle somebody so everyone gets a laugh and I can feel better. I triple dog dare you to do that, because it's very difficult. But if you are kind to somebody, your life has more value. If you are part of a community, you feel better about you. Even if you're depressed or sad, research is showing that by being kind to someone, dopamine levels, cortisol, it all gets balanced out. There's a story I share with kids on every talk, and we calculated the other day, to over 1 million kids in the last 11 years. Done 1,400 school assemblies, and I've shared the story to everyone. Can I tell it to you real quick?
Yes.
It's very short. So if you'll notice behind me, there's some photographs that I've taken at an orphanage that I visit every year in South Africa. Those little kids there are at the orphanage. And so I was there one year. There's 300 children at this orphanage. They have no parents, the majority of them. Some of them are economic orphans, but they share beds very often. Some of them sleep on the floor because there's just not enough room. They sometimes only get 2 meals a day because there's not enough food for them. And one day I was there, and it was quite an interesting day. They were having what's called Cookie Day. So each one of them gets a cookie, a big cookie. There's 300 kids, so there's 300 cookies is a lot. So there are companies that will come with the expired cookies that they will just give out to the orphanage, just before they expire or just after the expiry date. And these kids get the cookie, and they wait in a long line. They get one at a time, and you won't believe how quickly they eat these cookies. They gobble them up, one after the other. And I was watching very intently. And so they'd get the cookie, gobble it up. Next kid gets his cookie, gobbles it up, all the way down the line, except for one little boy. And I noticed him because he wasn't jumping around like the other kids and excited. He got his cookie, he looks around, and he did something so interesting. He took the cookie and he ate it exactly in half. He nibbled the edges to make sure it was perfectly in half. I see him looking around to make sure no one's watching. He reaches into his pocket and he pulls out a piece of school book paper, just the white paper with the blue lines. He takes that half a cookie, he folds it into the paper, he makes the perfect little package. I see him take that cookie, look around again, and slip it back into his pocket, and he walks away. And I was like, that's interesting. I wonder why he didn't eat the whole cookie, because everyone was done by then. So I went up to him and I said to him, "Hey, buddy, are you feeling okay? Are you sick?" He goes, "No, sir." "Why?" I said, "Because I saw you put half the cookie in your pocket, right?" He said, "Yes, sir." I said, oh, I know what you're going to do. Tomorrow, nobody's going to have a cookie. You're going to take out your precious little packet and you're going to make everybody jealous, right? That's why you saved it. He goes, "No, sir." I said, "So why did you save it?" And he sighs. He goes, "Sir, it's because I'm very worried." "Dude, what are you worried about?" He said, "Sir, I'm worried about my best friend." I said, "Why?" He said, "Sir, my best friend in the whole world, he came to this orphanage with me when we were babies, and we're both 9 years old now. But about 2 weeks ago, he couldn't wake up in the morning. And they were putting water on his face and they were patting his face and he couldn't wake up. And the ambulance came and the doctors came and they took my friend to the hospital. He's very, very sick. And but I think he's going to come home next week or maybe in 2 weeks. And because he missed Cookie Day, I'm saving half the cookie for him." And when I share that story at schools, there's an audible gasp, and you will not believe how many kids come up to me afterwards. 20, 30 kids, and they give me whatever they've got in their pockets to take to the kids. And what that story does, sharing a personal story that I have about kindness, and I do share about my own shortcomings as a human and the stuff I struggled with as a kid, it resonates with the kids and it validates what they're feeling. But by sharing the personal story, they feel it, and I see them walk out of there differently. I see kids will put their arm around another kid or call somebody over who maybe is feeling emotional because of the story. And so that's, again, to answer your very quick question with a long thing, I really try to foster connection between kids, kindness, and challenging them to take care of each other. I always tell kids, don't wait for grown-ups to change the world. They take too long and they have too many meetings. They have the power themselves. We have to teach them how, give them the tools, and give them permission to be great.
Yeah. Man, I love so much about all of that. And I think the main thing, just from an educator perspective, is it's those lessons that I have found to be most effective where we're not telling anybody what to do. You need to go do this, or telling anybody what they need to stop doing. I want you to stop doing that immediately. Rather, we're just simply planting a seed with a beautiful emotional story. And the kid is naturally going to think, that's who I want to be. The
Right.
way I feel right now, I want other people to feel that. And I want to continue feeling this. And the way I'm going to do that is by being like that, exactly what he described. And now that's part of the kid's life forever.
Yeah. I've spoken to kids, and I've told that story for many years. I've seen kids who are now in 12th grade, and they'll see me somewhere. Oh, Mr. Romain, I remember that story about the cookie. Okay, we've done
Yeah.
a good job. Yeah.
It works. Yeah, man. Listen, man, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Man, I can't thank you enough. I really, really appreciate you. Not just you, but man, all the work that you do and traveling the globe and meeting with thousands and thousands and having an impact on millions of kids' lives through your words and speaking and also your books. It's just man, just a beautiful, beautiful life that you've put together, man. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. And I just want to thank all the teachers out there, especially people who got on tonight, and educators. Thank you. You chose this job not because you're going to be rich, not because you want a lot of holidays. You chose this job because you care deeply about children. And that is a gift. And it's something that very few people in this world can go home at night and say, wow, I changed a life, because you guys do it every single day. And I appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much, everyone.
All
Cheers.
right, take care, man.